Joan Bistoff. I am a resident of Littleton. I am also a member of the Littleton and Ayers Spectacle Pond Association, current web developer for the association, so be sure to check it out. Today I'm here in the studio with my friend and my neighbor, Rob Hartz. Rob was the president of the Littleton and Ayers Spectacle Pond Association for a good number of years. He was one of the first founding members of the association. I'm here today with him in our 3-part docu-series about the Spectacle Pond Association, where in part 1 we talked about the issue at face, the issue that we faced that really resulted in the formation of the association. Right? The summary of it was a railroad company wanted to build an auto unloading facility on top of an environmentally sensitive area, an aquifer. We spoke about that on part 1. In part 2, we spoke about how residents and the association really gathered together to stop that plan. And we thought it was successful because Ford, which was the customer of the railroad company, decided not to go ahead with the plan. But of course, here we are in part 3, so obviously that was not the end of the story. So part 3, we will tell you what happened next. So, hello, Rob.
Hello, Joan.
Thank you for spending time here again for this interview. Tell us about part 3.
Yeah.
Right? We thought we had success. It was a huge sign of relief.
Right.
But no.
I guess we'll just start with things change, which is always the case when you are in these complex, multi-year things. As you and I were laughing about earlier, it said, when I first heard that this was going to happen, I thought, I'll get involved briefly because we'll just hold the fort because we have EPA and DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. The whole proposal is so ridiculous to pave over an
Right.
a environmentally sensitive area. I thought I would just be there briefly, and that was 15 years of hard work on this. And so, but thank you for noting that we had success, and that was for 6 or 7 years, and the success came with a lot of people doing a lot of work, and that included getting our senators and Congress people involved, letters to the chairman of Ford Motor Company, and ultimately an answer that said, we elect not to go ahead with our auto unloading. And as soon as the client for auto unloading is out of the picture, no facility would be built, of course. So we were very pleased with that outcome.
And that was 2003.
2003. It was, And so with that, we kind of stepped back and thought, well, okay, we can relax a little bit. We can celebrate our win and feel very good that something happened positive, and a corporation that was looking to be seen as a green corporation had actually followed up with that value. Then, as you mentioned, as things change, which is the economic condition in 2008, 2009, made a giant shift in leadership in Ford, new chairman, new leaders, and new point of view. And that included that they will decide to continue to go ahead with the auto unloading.
Oof. How did you feel the day you received notification that that monster has resurfaced?
Monster. We had heard word of it, and I finally got it verified from someone within Ford. Yes, we are going forward. And that was a real blow because we had worked so hard and we had gotten a very positive outcome from a large corporation that had really put the brakes on auto unloading, joke intended, I guess. But this was a good thing, and we were now having to regroup. And when you have a blow like this, we're at another threshold moment, we have to think hard. How are we going to address this? We have to be very creative, as we had been. And what we were doing was said we got to go redouble our efforts and go back to the people, the relationships we had already built with people in Congress, with leaders, we'd talked to 2 governors, Governor Romney, then Governor Patrick, and really try and get as much support as we could. And it was not immediate, but we did have some ideas that we needed to reach out more with people we'd already reached out and some people we hadn't. So that was our plan. We've got to have government on our side. We can't do this ourselves. We don't have the corporation that we did have, but we still have government support, we hope.
So step one, what did you do?
Well, one of the people on our list was Representative Nikki Tsongas, our congresswoman for this area, and we had met with her staff. We had many discussions, but we didn't feel that they had actually, that our office was not doing nearly enough. We hadn't really seen a lot of action, and we were frankly.
You didn't feel like you had the real attention.
We don't think we had been heard properly. So one of our members pointed out that the congresswoman would be going to the Shaw's supermarket in Groton. And we decided we'd rendezvous there just before she arrived with signs saying, you know, save our water. And because what's at stake again is the drinking water for Air and for Littleton. Vast amounts, 2 million gallons a day, more or less for both towns. For each town, that's a lot of water, and it's our livelihood, it's our health, it's our well-being, and it's our community. So this is big stuff. So it was Leon Weaver, our colleague and friend, and me, and 4 or 5 grandmothers. And
they were the real firepower.
They were the firepower. They were really fierce. And they were like, we're going to get heard today. And I said, yes, we are. Just picture the scene. We're in the parking lot. There's an assistant manager who looks very nervous from Shaw's going, what's going on? What's going on? We said, we're okay. We're legal and we're pleasant and we're not getting in anybody's way. And so we were smiling as the congresswoman approached, and she looked a little puzzled. We're holding our signs and saying, good morning, Congresswoman Tsongas. And staff members are very annoyed, and they're trying to haul her into the supermarket because there are people waiting to see her for take care of their Social Security check or whatever it is they asked their congressperson to do. So she was in a bind. So there we are standing out front, and she's staring at us, and we're staring at her, and she's saying, but I have to go in. And the staff was literally pulling her arm. Come on, Congresswoman. They're trying to get her out of this. But she's, to her credit, she stood strong, and she said, I have to go in there, but I'd like to talk with you. How about if I come out in an hour? And I immediately said no, because I knew I was leaving. I had a family vacation plan. I said, I'm sorry, I won't be here. We won't be here in an hour. And she said, how about, the staff is still tugging at her arm, and she said, wait a minute, how about if you talk to Brian? And I looked at Brian, as a well-dressed guy, and he's...
Who is Brian?
Brian Martin was the former mayor of Lowell, and it was one of her chief advisors. And I just looked at him and I said, we'll talk with Brian. Have a good day, Congresswoman. So she went about her business. And then Brian Martin was the person we really contacted and really gave the message to, and he made us some promises. So that was our success in an engagement with a person in Congress.
Okay, so step 1, corner a congresswoman.
Yes.
How did step 1 evolve to step 2?
Well, step 1 was in June of 2009, as you mentioned. 2009 is a very important year. We've got Ford declining, coming back into the action. We had then a congresswoman who now has the message and her advisor taking action. So that action was, he really did work the phones. Big credit to him. And he got the general counsel from EPA, who we knew very well, and the regional manager from DEP, who we also knew very well. He brought attorneys from both sides in, the railroad, town attorneys, the town administrator, and significantly the STB, that stands for Surface Transportation Board out of Washington. 3 women came up. And the STB, Surface Transportation Board, is the only entity that has any kind of influence over the railroad. So that was an important contribution. The fact they came all the way up to air for this meeting. So he did a good job. It was a panel discussion. So you have to imagine being in, I don't know if you've ever been in AIR's town hall, but it's a big, big room, and it was packed, just packed. There was a panel up front, and it was standing room only. The official count was 172 people, which made us very proud. It said we did a good job of getting the message out. What it also indicated is that people are passionate about protecting our drinking water and passionate about the town being able to lend those protections. And every speaker that got up, just one after another, said, this is the way this decision impacts me, my children, my neighbors, and this town, these towns, this region. We made it a regional issue, too. It wasn't simply Ayer's problem. It was Littleton's problem. So in that discussion, there's lots of back and forth between the attorney and the questionnaires, and the EPA and DEP were trying to be very supportive of us as far as they could go. And finally, the Surface Transportation sort of indicated they were not going to stop the railroad, but they had concerns, and they were, it was left ambiguous. Well, we're not going to just jump in and stop this.
So there was no conclusion from that time.
Well, the conclusion that I took away was they probably aren't going to. They might help us in the future, but right now, this thing is going forward. So it was a disappointment. But the fact that we got that much attention was also, a positive. That there are a lot of people that care about this. This is not being swept under the rug. We keep it in front. So another sort of threshold moment, we said, now what? It didn't get exactly the answer, but we were, at this point, used to it. We so many times said, people that say, I fully support you, and then we couldn't, they would then say, well, it's very different, it's very complex, is what they would tell us.
Very challenging.
It's challenging. It was challenging.
So step 2, organize a town hall, but got an ambiguous response. How did you then push forward?
Well, it was more, might be our good attention, but also a bit of luck or bad luck for the railroad. In 2006, there was a spill of diesel fuel. They called in and said there was a 9-gallon spill, and then a whistleblower, I think I said in the last report, was called in and told the fire chief, you might want to look at this. It was between 800 and 900 gallons of diesel fuel they had spilled. Not only the problem is that they spilled it, the second is they tried to cover it up. And so at dead of night, they're in there trying to cover up their massive spill and still reporting 9-gallon spill. So it tells us a little bit about how trustworthy this organization is.
800 to 900, but you report as 9.
It's not a rounding error, but so that our concern goes up because one is they are careless in their actions and they are also deceitful. So that says we really got to fight harder. So it helps us keep going. So what happened is we then followed the lawsuit. It was the biggest criminal fine, environmental crime, $500,000 fine on the railroad. And because they kept pushing on things, the Attorney General, whom we met, Associate Attorney General, Andrew Rayner, ran the Environmental Crime Strike Force for Massachusetts. I'm glad we have one. It worked in this case, and he brought them into court. And in front of Judge Fahey, we were able to transfer. The challenge that we saw was we don't think that anyone's going to stop this auto unloading. However, rather than stopping it, we realized that our real goal here is to protect the water. And we've got to figure out every means possible. And talking to the water managers in Littleton and Ayer, we really found that stormwater was the key thing, and the stormwater plan they had put in place was just ineffective. It would have caused more of those chemicals into our precious water, our drinking water, into our pond, which we live near. And so we were able to have very good discussions with the Attorney General's office and present plans that would be a high standard of stormwater protection. Through a few conversations and maybe the judge's help, she made sure that was the working plan. That's what we have today, stormwater system that we think is reliable, and we can respect that outcome.
So the success from the outcome of the court case was not that the plans were derailed, but rather there was an adequate protection plan for what was truly important.
That's what we...
Conserving the quality of the water.
Yep. We felt like we had done a good job, and we had expertise we brought in, and we had support from the government in the shape of the Attorney General's office, mostly because the railroad had done such bad behavior. If they hadn't done that, all bets are off.
I guess the spill was, a blessing in disguise.
I suppose.
Yeah. Unfortunate, but at least it was the silver lining.
Well, it made it clear who we were dealing with, and it made it clear to the Attorney General's office that they need to take action, and to their credit, they did.
Yeah. And so after that, did you celebrate again, or were you cautious? We're
so cautious about everything, because at this point, that railroad has been sold to CSX, and so we need to keep a dialogue with them to make sure that they're using proper methods to make sure the stormwater is functioning and that there are no other problems. But that railroad is out of the picture, which is good news in our mind. But when you live near a pond or around an aquifer, you have to be on alert all the time. What's going on, because it isn't as easy as it seems like. There are so many moving parts, and we're never there to stop commerce or to stop the railroad or auto unloading. We were fine with all that. We're just only asking for, you have a lot right down the road, why don't you use it? It's off the aquifer.
Right.
But the railroad would just keep insisting, this is what we want to do, and we have a right to do it. And so it was a very, very hard battle, but also the town has rights and responsibilities to protect their citizens. And so it was a messy legal, political problem that we're right smack in the middle of.
Yeah.
And remember, we're just this very small outfit. No one's paid. We don't have attorneys. We don't have funding. But we managed.
My number one revelation, and what I'm really happy about, Rob, is that you didn't move after 2003. You stayed around for part 2.
We stayed around. That's the other thing.
Maybe that's why you're staying around.
Yeah, you have to stay in the game to make it work. So longevity helps.
But jokes aside, you spent over 10 years on this issue, right? When you look back now, can you kind of see a whole summary and an overview about change in this process? How would you describe the whole process?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Let me pause for a second, because we were laughing earlier that I probably wouldn't have gotten involved because we did feel like there were other people that would do the work. But I think our first real insight, not just for me, but for our whole group of 5 or 6 or 10 people that were starting this, was that there are no heroes coming in. EPA is not going to step in and stop it, not DEP, not anybody. It's us. It lands on our shoulder. Neither town can actually just step up. They're being sued by the railroad. It was us. It was on us to keep this issue alive. And so I'm very proud that we did that, and we did it over time. And a lot of people, as I mentioned, coming to that meeting, that was big. The fact that there were petitions and meetings and demonstrations and stuff going on, we had an impact. But in terms of reflecting the specifics of it, as you know, I do organizational development and leadership, and I'm working with a colleague, and we've built a model that maybe partially describes what just happened, so I'll give it a try.
Sure.
So it's a model that has the shape of an infinity diagram. You have to imagine that. And infinity is really good, because the thing was like we were always going around the turn, and then the next thing would come up, and it was this continual flow. And so we have 6 C's. So on the right half of the infinity diagram, we'd have the 3 C's: care, conservation, co-creation. So each one at a time is care. If you care a little bit, if you don't have care, nothing's going to happen. Right? The very fact that we have a lot of people in these towns that care about their environment was huge. Caring a little means you sign a petition, you come to a meeting, or you join. a demonstration, whatever, and that's great. We had a lot of people doing that. But caring a lot means that you're really an architect, a planner, you are messaging, you are going out and researching, making contacts. And we were grateful that we had people, PACE, People of Air, Concerned for the Environment, Spectacle Pond Association, and other entities that really did that hard work for a long time. So care was properly in place. We care a lot about this community, and a lot of people do. Second one is conservation, and that's an easy one, is saying, well, we're conserving our drinking water, obviously, and we worked very hard to do that, but it also occurred to me, in hindsight, we're not just conserving our drinking water, but we were also conserving our sense of community. We're also conserving our rights as citizens to stand up and protect what is our environment. It's also conserving these small towns that are being bullied by railroads, are getting sued by the railroad at every turn, but to help them understand that their responsibilities are real and they need to keep fighting. So we were conserving a lot of things in that motion. The third one, co-creation. And when you are outgunned, as we were, no resources, no one's getting paid, they have attorneys, they have wealth, they have connections. We had to use our imagination, first to imagine a good outcome in where all odds seemed against us. And second of all, when you don't have resources, you have to be very, very creative. How do we get people's attention in these things? How do we keep their attention? How do we link to people that want to help us and get them to link to others? That causes some level of creation and co-creation. So that's the right half of this infinity. The threshold is the middle part, and we've had several threshold moments where we said, oh, Ford has stopped, we have to change. So the big threshold for us is we did lots of great imagining and discussing and caring and working within ourselves, building coalition. Then we had to go outward. So the first one on that, or the number 4, is collaboration. And that is, the first collaboration was getting the two towns, Littleton and Ayer, and to some degree Harvard, to start talking with one another, to say, well, this is a joint problem. Both towns draw from this aquifer a lot of water, and we need to take this as a regional issue, not simply one town issue. That was our collaboration. Then the coordination is not just that people are agreeing that we'll work together, but coordination means they're actually scheduling meetings, getting together, the coordination of political leaders and agencies, like getting EPA and DEP and various groups coming together, and the Attorney General's office all coming together. That's our coordination, and that's where the real power is. When you have a coordinated front, collaborative, coordinated, caring, you actually have power. And so this is about how does a small group that has seemingly no power gain enough power to actually get a company, Ford, to change their mind, that actually has the ability to have impact on how a railroad builds their auto unloading facility. So the last C is contribution. And that is, you almost don't even know it. You know, we had ideas about ways we're contributing, but it's only in hindsight. And we look back on it and say, the contribution is safe water, as the town water manager from Ayer said, 6 years later, said, if we hadn't acted when we did, we'd have pollution right now in the aquifer and in the pond, from this auto unloading facility. So in that 6 years that Ford stopped, the technology got much better. And because the court case was, the railroad was in court with a judge helping to dictate terms, we were able to have an impact. So our contribution, we think, was pretty big. So that is our infinity loop. And so every change effort, I start to say, do we care enough?
Right.
What are we conserving? What are the imaginations? Where does our imagination, creativity take us to look at all options?
And how we can project that to the next step.
Exactly. And how do we collaborate, coordinate, and then look back on our contribution and feel proud about what we did collectively.
Very cool. Very cool. I hope that an issue like that does not surface. But if it does, I feel like this model is really helpful to guide us into moving forward.
Right. I still use it and think about it with whatever issue comes up, because we're always in change. even what happened now is like it will probably change again, so we have to be ready.
Awesome.
And it's great that we have a pond association that keeps us on alert and keeps the information flowing, and has people like you that are willing to step up and
Thank you.
build websites and run interviews.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, so that concludes our 3-part docu-series about the Spectacle Pond Association. We hope you enjoy it, and be sure to check out our website.